Over 60 top 4 nuts to boost eye health and brain power. Let me hit you with a shocking fact right out of the gate. 99% of people over 60 have no idea that 4 everyday nuts, yes, simple nuts, could mean the difference between clear vision or blindness, between a sharp memory or years of decline. Some of you might be thinking, nuts? Really, doc? That sounds too simple. Others might say, I've heard nuts are healthy, but can they really protect my brain? Well, stick with me because the science is jaw-dropping, and I've seen the results firsthand in my own patients. Here's the reality. After 60, your eyes and brain are under attack every single day. Vision fades, memory slips, independence slowly slips away. But what if I told you there are 4 specific nuts that can actually fight back, improving circulation, shielding your eyes from damage, and fueling your brain so it stays sharp well into your 70s, 80s, even 90s? And here's the kicker. One of these nuts is so powerful, it shocked even me after 4 decades as a physician. It's not the one most people think of, and chances are, it's sitting in your kitchen right now. So before we jump in, do me a favor, smash that like button, share this video with a friend or loved one, and hit subscribe. Every click helps us keep bringing you the kind of life-changing, science-backed health tips that Big Pharma doesn't want you to know. Because in just a moment, I'm going to reveal the 4 nuts that could keep you driving safely, remembering your grandkids' names, and protecting your independence for years longer than you thought possible. Trust me, you'll never look at a bowl of nuts the same way again. Why eyes and brains decline after 60. Aging is not just about wrinkles or gray hair, it's about the silent changes happening inside your body. By the time you reach 60, your eyes have already worked for millions of hours, and the wear begins to show. Age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, becomes the leading cause of blindness in older adults. Cataracts, glaucoma, and chronic dry eye follow close behind. The reason is oxidative stress. Every time light enters your retina, free radicals are formed. When you are young, antioxidants clean up the damage, but as you age, your defenses weaken. Imagine a roof patched too many times. Eventually the leaks break through, and in your eyes, those leaks appear as declining vision. The brain suffers a similar fate. After 60, the risk of cognitive decline doubles every 5 years. By 85, 1 in 3 Americans develops Alzheimer's disease. The causes are the same villains: oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. Neurons, the delicate cells that carry every thought and memory, are extremely vulnerable. When blood flow slows or inflammation spreads, neurons begin to falter and die, and unlike muscle or skin, they rarely regenerate. This is why forgetfulness, hesitation with names, or moments of walking into a room and losing your train of thought become so common. They're not just senior moments. They're signals that your brain is asking for more support. This is where nuts enter the picture. These small, humble foods are packed with antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats that directly address the core problems. Vitamin E, found in almonds and hazelnuts, has been shown in studies to lower the risk of Alzheimer's by more than a third. Omega-3 fatty acids from walnuts strengthen communication between brain cells, improving memory and learning. Pistachios, rich in L-arginine, boost circulation by increasing nitric oxide, which sends more oxygen to the eyes and brain. Research published in journals like Circulation Research and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirms that these nutrients improve vascular health, cognitive performance, and visual function. One long-term study in nutrients found that seniors who ate nuts regularly had a 40% lower risk of cognitive decline compared to those who rarely ate them. That's not coincidence, that's solid science. And I've seen it in real life. In my decades as a physician, the patients who made small, consistent choices, like adding a handful of nuts to their day, were often the ones who kept their independence the longest. They drove safely for more years, remembered their appointments, and stayed engaged with family life. So my advice is simple: don't wait for symptoms to take over. Ask yourself now, what are you doing today to protect your eyesight and your memory for tomorrow? Decline is not inevitable. You have the tools within reach, and sometimes they are as simple as the nut sitting quietly in your pantry. Why nuts are nature's perfect brain and eye food. Think of your body as a house. Your eyes are the windows that let you see the world, and your brain is the wiring that keeps everything running. Over time, the windows get scratched, the wires lose their insulation, and the whole system starts to wear down. What do nuts do? They act like a fresh coat of paint that protects the windows from rusting and like insulation that keeps the wires from sparking. They're not just snacks. They're tiny repair kits for the most important parts of your body. Nuts are packed with nutrients your brain and eyes crave. Omega-3 fatty acids, found especially in walnuts, protect neurons and improve memory by strengthening the communication between brain cells. Vitamin E, abundant in almonds and hazelnuts, shields your eye cells from oxidative damage, much like sunglasses filtering out the harsh rays of the sun. Lutein and zeaxanthin, concentrated in pistachios, are natural pigments that settle into your retina, guarding it against harmful blue light from screens and sunlight. Magnesium and B vitamins, present in several varieties of nuts, help your brain's electrical signals stay sharp, reducing fatigue and improving focus. The science backs this up. A 2020 study in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging showed that older adults who consumed a handful of nuts at least 5 times a week performed better on memory and attention tests than those who rarely ate them. Another analysis from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that people with higher intakes of vitamin E had a 25 to 30% lower risk of developing age-related macular degeneration. These aren't abstract numbers, they are proof that simple dietary choices can protect the very senses that connect you to life. Let me share something from my own practice. Years ago, I treated a retired school teacher who loved reading but was struggling with worsening eye strain. Instead of prescribing yet another supplement, I encouraged her to add a mix of almonds and pistachios to her daily routine. 6 months later, not only was her vision test more stable, but she also told me she felt less mental fog in the afternoons. It wasn't a miracle, it was nutrition doing its quiet work. Now ask yourself this: you wouldn't let your house go decades without maintenance, so why would you let your brain and eyes? Every day they're exposed to stress, light, and inflammation. Wouldn't it make sense to give them the protection they deserve? The truth is, nuts don't just fill your stomach, they feed your brain, they protect your vision, they keep you sharper, steadier, and more independent as the years pass. And unlike pills or powders, they are natural, affordable, and delicious. Sometimes the simplest choices, like a small handful of nuts, are the most powerful investments you can make in your future health. Nut number 4, pistachios, the circulation nut. Poor circulation is often thought of as a problem only in the legs, cold feet, swelling ankles, or that heavy feeling when walking. But the truth is, circulation impacts your entire body, including your eyes and your brain. When blood vessels stiffen with age, less oxygen and fewer nutrients reach the tissues that need them most. That's one reason so many people over 60 complain of foggy thinking, slower reaction times, or worsening night vision. Pistachios can help change that story. These small green nuts are rich in L-arginine, an amino acid your body uses to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide acts as a signal for blood vessels to relax and open, allowing blood to flow more freely. Better circulation means more oxygen reaches your retina to protect your eyesight, and more nutrients fuel your brain to keep it sharp. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that older adults who included pistachios in their diet experienced measurable improvements in vascular function, and many also saw reductions in blood pressure, another critical factor in protecting both the eyes and the brain. In my own practice, I remember Helen, a 72-year-old retired nurse. She came to me frustrated by her constantly cold feet and her struggles with driving after dark. Instead of jumping to medication, I suggested a simple change: add about 30 pistachios to her afternoon snack. Within a month, she noticed her feet felt warmer and her night vision had improved. It wasn't magic, it was nutrition supporting circulation the way it's designed to. And Helen isn't alone. Another patient, James, 69, had been dealing with frequent dizziness when standing up quickly. After adding pistachios and increasing his hydration, his symptoms improved dramatically. When blood vessels open more easily, the whole system works better. Now, let me ask you this. How often do you think about the role of circulation in your vision or your memory? Most people don't connect the two, but poor blood flow is often at the root of those subtle declines we chalk up to just aging. Isn't it worth giving your body the support it needs before problems become irreversible? The beauty of pistachios is that they are simple, affordable, and enjoyable. A handful in the afternoon can fight fatigue, stabilize energy, and keep your brain and eyes better nourished. But here's my advice as a physician: skip the salted, candied, or flavored varieties. The extra sodium and sugar cancel out the benefits. Go for unsalted, dry roasted, or raw pistachios and keep your serving to about 1 ounce, roughly a small handful. It's a small daily habit with a surprisingly big payoff. When you give your blood vessels the tools to stay flexible and open, you're not just protecting your heart, you're protecting your vision, your memory, and your independence. Nut number 3, almonds, the eye shield. Almonds are one of the richest natural sources of vitamin E, and this nutrient acts like a pair of sunglasses for your cells, shielding them from oxidative damage caused by free radicals. The eyes are especially vulnerable because they are constantly exposed to light, and over time this exposure wears down the delicate tissues of the retina. Research published in the Archives of Ophthalmology showed that people with higher intakes of vitamin E were about 25% less likely to develop age-related macular degeneration, a leading cause of vision loss in seniors. That's a significant reduction from something as simple as a daily handful of almonds. In my years of practice, I've seen many patients who carry the fear of losing their eyesight because a parent or sibling went blind. Richard, a 68-year-old patient of mine, came in with exactly that concern. His mother had suffered from advanced macular degeneration, and he was determined not to follow the same path. We made one simple adjustment, adding 10 to 12 almonds to his breakfast, usually sprinkled over his oatmeal. 5 years later, his eye exam showed no signs of AMD progression. To this day, he swears by what he calls his almond oatmeal, saying it not only protects his eyes but also gives him steady morning energy. Another example comes from a patient named Linda, 71, who struggled with constant dry eyes and difficulty reading in the evenings. When we added almonds to her diet, along with better hydration, she noticed her eyes felt less irritated, and she could enjoy her nightly reading again. While almonds aren't a cure-all, their antioxidant properties work quietly in the background, reducing inflammation and protecting fragile tissues. Here's a question I often ask my patients. If you knew one small daily habit could lower your chances of losing your eyesight, would you take it seriously? Most people spend hundreds on glasses, eye drops, and supplements, but sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. The best way to enjoy almonds is in their most natural form. A small handful, about 1 ounce, or roughly 23 almonds, is plenty. Choose raw or lightly roasted for maximum benefit. Almond butter is another good option, but skip the brands with added sugar or hydrogenated oils. Pairing almonds with foods rich in vitamin C, like berries or citrus, can enhance their antioxidant effects and provide even more protection for your eyes. Adding almonds to your routine is not about making dramatic changes. It's about creating consistency. Over time, these small, steady choices build up, and the reward is clearer vision, healthier eyes, and the peace of mind that you're doing something every day to protect your independence. Nut number 2, walnuts, the memory nut. Walnuts are often called food for the brain, and for good reason. They are one of the richest plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, the same type of healthy fat found in fish, which helps strengthen communication between brain cells and reduce inflammation that can damage neurons over time. The human brain is nearly 60% fat, and it depends on omega-3s to keep its structure and function intact. Without enough of them, memory, focus, and even mood can suffer. A 2019 study from UCLA confirmed what many of us have suspected for years. Seniors who ate walnuts regularly performed better on memory, concentration, and processing speed tests than those who didn't. The researchers concluded that the nutrients in walnuts may help slow the natural decline in brain function that often comes with aging. I think of Margaret, a 74-year-old patient of mine who came to me worried about her senior moments. She was misplacing her keys, forgetting appointments, and losing confidence in her ability to stay independent. I encouraged her to add a handful of walnuts to her daily routine, sometimes with berries to balance the slight bitterness. Within months, she felt sharper and even returned to teaching her grandchildren how to play chess, something she had given up because she felt too distracted before. Another patient, Frank, age 70, was struggling with low energy and difficulty focusing during his morning reading. When he began eating walnuts as part of his breakfast, he noticed not only better concentration, but also steadier energy levels throughout the day. These changes might sound small, but when you add them up, they represent real improvements in quality of life. The science continues to support this. A long-term analysis published in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging followed thousands of older adults and found that those who consumed nuts, especially walnuts, had a lower risk of developing cognitive impairment. Researchers believe it's not just the omega-3, but also the antioxidants, polyphenols, and minerals in walnuts that work together to protect brain cells from oxidative stress and support blood flow to the brain. So here's something to think about. How much attention do you give to your brain health compared to your heart or your bones? Most of us only react when memory problems appear, but by then the damage may already be underway. Isn't it wiser to start protecting your brain earlier with something as simple as a handful of walnuts? The best way to enjoy them is raw if possible, about 1 ounce a day, which is roughly 7 whole walnuts. They pair beautifully with berries or a little dark chocolate for added antioxidants. Keep them in a jar on the counter or in small snack bags so they're easy to grab, because consistency is what makes the difference. Over time, that daily habit can mean clearer thinking, stronger memory, and the confidence to stay independent as you age. Nut number 1, hazelnuts. The brain and eye protector you didn't expect. Hazelnuts may not get the same attention as almonds or walnuts, but they contain a powerful blend of nutrients that make them especially valuable for seniors. They are rich in vitamin E, B vitamins, magnesium, and lutein, the exact combination your eyes and brain need as you age. Vitamin E acts as a shield against oxidative stress, protecting delicate eye tissues and slowing cellular damage. Magnesium supports nerve function and helps regulate blood flow to the brain, while B vitamins play a critical role in maintaining memory and reducing the risk of cognitive decline. Lutein, a carotenoid also found in leafy greens, settles into the retina, where it protects against harmful blue light and supports sharper vision. Science backs up these benefits. A study from Oregon State University showed that older adults who added hazelnuts to their diet saw significant increases in both vitamin E and magnesium levels, and those improvements translated into better cognitive performance and more stable vision. Other research has linked higher dietary intake of lutein with a reduced risk of cataracts and age-related macular degeneration, two of the most common threats to senior eye health. I'll never forget John, a 79-year-old patient who came to me worried about worsening memory and blurred vision. He had already begun avoiding his beloved crossword puzzles because the clues felt harder to recall and the letters on the page looked cloudy. I suggested adding hazelnuts to his daily diet, just a small handful, sometimes sprinkled on his salad or ground into his morning coffee. Within a year, his memory tests stabilized, his cataract progression slowed, and he returned to his puzzles with joy. He told me, "Doc, those hazelnuts gave me back my crossword puzzles." That simple habit restored not only his brain function but also a piece of his independence and identity. Hazelnuts can also make a difference for those struggling with everyday fatigue. One of my patients, Maria, 73, added hazelnuts as her evening snack. She reported that not only did she feel more alert, but she also noticed fewer episodes of eye strain when using her tablet at night. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, but the small, steady improvements gave her confidence that her health was moving in the right direction. Now let me ask you, when was the last time you considered protecting your eyes and brain with something as ordinary as a nut? We often think solutions need to come from prescriptions or expensive supplements, but sometimes the most effective answers are right in front of us. The best way to enjoy hazelnuts is raw or dry roasted, without added sugar or heavy seasoning. About an ounce a day, roughly a small handful, is enough to deliver meaningful benefits. They can be tossed into a salad, blended into coffee for a nutty flavor, or eaten plain as an afternoon snack. The key is consistency, because the benefits build gradually over time. By making hazelnuts part of your routine, you are giving your brain and eyes the nutrients they crave to stay strong, sharp, and resilient for years to come. So let's bring it all together. We've uncovered the truth about 4 simple nuts that do far more than just satisfy hunger. Pistachios improve circulation, making sure your brain and eyes get the oxygen they need. Almonds act like natural sunglasses, shielding your vision from damage. Walnuts fuel your memory with powerful omega-3s. And hazelnuts, the quiet powerhouse, deliver a unique blend of nutrients that protect both mind and eyesight. These are not just snacks. They're daily habits that can protect your independence. With every handful, you're giving your brain and eyes the support they need to stay strong, sharp, and resilient. Think about it. If something this small can help preserve your freedom and quality of life, isn't it worth making it part of your routine? Thank you so much for watching. If this video inspired you, please hit that like button, share it with someone you care about, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the simple, science-backed tips we'll be sharing next. Your support motivates us to keep creating content that helps you live healthier, longer, and stronger. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video.